Hi, I'm Dr. Flibble, and this week I'll be taking a break from my usual target, Eragon, to look at another piece of crap, The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. Like Dorothy Parker once said, this is not a book to be tossed aside lightly, it is to be thrown with great force.
The Amber Spyglass is the third and final book in the His Dark Materials trilogy. The first and second books are The Golden Compass and The Subtle Knife, respectively, and in case you're wondering why I'm only doing this one instead of tearing into those two first, it's because they simply don't deserve it. The Golden Compass in particular I'd even go so far as to call a masterpiece, and The Subtle Knife, while certainly much, much weaker, is, for all its flaws, a pretty good read. I'm not going to waste time recapping these two, so if you haven't already read them, and I strongly advise that you do, you'll have to check out the summaries on Wikipedia, provided you don't mind spoilers, if you're going to have any hope of understanding what's going on. When His Dark Materials came out at around the turn of the millennium, it was hugely popular, and won numerous accolades. However, for all its original fascinating concepts, deep plots, and likeable, well-developed characters, it also received a considerable amount of criticism, especially from right-wing and Christian groups, who are unhappy with the blatant pro-secular humanist message and the clumsy, often mean-spirited way in which Pullman delivered it. Yeah, right now you're probably groaning and rolling your eyes at how these quote-unquote nut jobs are ridiculous for getting their knickers in a twist over something so trivial like they always do, and how we shouldn't care about what they say or bother to respect their beliefs. So when I say that every last bit of their outrage over this book was absolutely 100% warranted, it just goes to show how asinine and offensive it really is.
Before we dig in, you should bear in mind that I worship Nyarlathotep, and thus am not biased in favour of either the atheist side or the Christian side, although even if I was, that still wouldn't excuse the author's patent insensitivity.
The first bad sign comes right at the very start, before the book itself has even begun, in the form of a few excerpts from classic poems. Gratuitous literary and mythological references are perhaps the second most pretentious trope in all of writing, and this book has it in droves. And I mean droves! Pullman went to Oxford, and he never, ever, ever lets us forget it. Ever! The previous books had it too, but they managed to pull it off rather elegantly, since they use it to a much lesser extent, were much more subtle about it. Take, for instance, The Golden Compass, which had one quote from John Milton's Paradise Lost at the start, and that was as overt as it got. Here, however, all bets are off. There's not one, not two, but 3 quotes from different poets, all much more obscure than Milton. And it doesn't stop there. Oh no, if you thought that was bad, wait till you see the rest of this train wreck, because there's a quote, usually from Blake or Milton or the Bible, at the start of every single chapter. I shit you not. And that's without taking into account oodles upon oodles upon oodles of references to Milton, and the Bible, and Dante, and Gnosticism, and Nyarlathotep knows what else in the actual story.
It's like if the secret love child of the Matrix and Neon Genesis Evangelion moved to France after doing a degree in philosophy.
Also, you know what I said about how gratuitous literary and mythological references are the second most pretentious trope in all of writing? You know what the first is? Purple prose. And, surprise surprise, the book has this in droves too, once again unlike the previous two. The first page alone is devoted entirely to describing nothing more than a valley in the Himalayas in excruciatingly flowery, poetic detail. To be fair, as annoyingly pretentious this florid language is, notice how I seem to be using the word pretentious a lot? I do have to admit that it does have a very nice lyrical quality to it, unlike that of Paulini or Mayer, which is just plain tacky, revolting, and above all amateurish. Even after Pullman's fall from grace to rival Lucifer, you can still tell he's a professional. Unfortunately, since he's so maddeningly obsessed with rubbing it in the reader's face that he's a professional, this doesn't win him back any lost points.
Seriously, he's such a show-off he makes the Chateau de Versailles look like a fucking trailer park.
As it turns out, this valley is where our hero, a chavvy 12-year-old brat named Lyra, is being kept hidden by her mother, the evil Mrs. Coulter, who is perhaps one of the greatest baddies in all of fiction, having been taken captive by her at the end of The Subtle Knife. A little girl named Armour, who is set up to be an important character but ultimately goes nowhere, brings them food and supplies, and we learn that Lyra is comatose. At the end of the chapter we're shown a dream she's having, which she's talking to the ghost of her best friend, Roger, who was killed by the big bad, Lord Asriel, who, incidentally, is also Lyra's father, at the end of the first book. It's a good, haunting, atmospheric scene, or at least it would be if it wasn't printed entirely in italics and didn't randomly add mid-sentence for no apparent reason, which makes it seem, you guessed it, pretentious. Next, we cut to our other hero, Will Parry, also 12. This scene carries on directly from one at the end of the previous book, where he's approached by a pair of angels called Balthamus and Baruch, who want to take him to see Lord Asriel, but he wants to rescue Lyra instead. Speaking of Lord Asriel, remember what I said about him being the big bad? Well, apparently not anymore. Now we're supposed to side with him all of a sudden. The fact that he murdered a child in cold blood to achieve his own ends, among other things, yeah, that kind of gets swept under the rug. Gee, if you thought Richard Dawkins was a bad spokesperson for atheism. As for the angels, well, they're a bit of a letdown too. In The Subtle Knife, they were made out to be these unfathomably alien entities, whose awareness spreads out beyond them like filamentary tentacles to the remotest corners of universes, with true forms more like architecture than organism, like huge structures composed of intelligence and feeling. Here, however, this brilliant, fascinating concept is promptly abandoned and forgotten about in favour of making them your average garden-variety winged humanoids, whose only unique quirk is that they're actually weaker than corporeal beings.
Oh yeah, and gay. No, really, they're supposed to be gay. I'm not making this up. Seriously, how does that even work?
Will uses his magic knife, the same as the one the previous book is named after, to carve holes in the space-time continuum that allow him to enter other dimensions. Eventually he finds his way into Lyra's universe, where she's been taken, and has the angels scout for her. They find her in the valley from the previous chapter, and report back to Will. Together they set off, when suddenly they have a run-in with some other angels, and are forced to use the knife to flee into another universe to avoid capture. Balthamus and Baruch explain to Will that the angels who just attacked them are servants of God. The reason for the sheer volume of controversy this book generated becomes apparent when they then proceed to bald-facedly state, in no uncertain terms, without any discretion whatsoever, that all religion is not only wrong, but an outright lie, perpetuated by God to give him power over the people and boost his ego. Oh, and it's not an allegory or standard for the Judeo-Christian God either, not even a thinly veiled one like Aslan. It's the real deal, and they explicitly say so.
Hey, look! Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No! It's my respect for Philip Pullman flying out the fucking window!
Afterwards, Baruch flies off to inform Lord Asriel that Will refuses to come see him until he's rescued Lyra, while Balthamus stays with Will and accompanies him on his quest. So ends chapter 2. Now that that's over, I have a confession to make. Pullman used to be one of my favourite authors. No, scratch that. He wasn't just one of my favourites, he was my favourite. That's right, my all-time #1. I even voted for The Golden Compass as the best book ever in a nationwide poll for Nyarlathotep's sake. Granted, I was around 10 or 11 at the time, and in retrospect I could hardly be said to have great taste, but nonetheless I stand by my opinion that Pullman's other works, especially The Golden Compass, are genius, and there's no excuse for failing so spectacularly on this account.
Damn you, Mr. Pullman! You broke my heart! I love you and you broke my heart! But I digress. That's it for me this week. Until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye!
I believe in angels. Something good